March 14th, 2011. Butler County Common Pleas Court, Hamilton, Ohio. The courtroom is packed to capacity, and in the center of it all, standing before a jury of 12 ordinary citizens who hold the power of life and death in their hands, is a defense attorney who is about to do something that will shock everyone in that room. She is about to break down completely. She is about to cry in open court. She is about to beg for the life of a man that prosecutors have painted as a ruthless gang member responsible for two brutal murders. Her client is Edel Hernandez Martinez, a 24-year-old Mexican national who has just been convicted on all counts. 2 counts of aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder, participating in a criminal street gang. The crimes are horrific. 2 Latino men shot dead in Fairfield back in 2008. Their lives snuffed out in an instant of gang violence that prosecutors say was cold, calculated, and completely senseless. The jury has already found Edel guilty. That part is over. That battle is lost. But now comes the penalty phase, the moment where these 12 jurors must decide whether Edel Hernandez Martinez will spend the rest of his natural life in prison or whether he will be strapped to a gurney and executed by the state of Ohio. The death penalty is on the table. This is not a theoretical possibility. This is real. The crimes carry death penalty eligibility because of their aggravated nature and because of the gang enhancement that makes everything worse, everything more calculated, everything more deserving of the ultimate punishment in the eyes of the law. Prosecutor Mike Gumoser has made his case forcefully. He has painted a picture of gang violence that terrorizes communities, destroys families, and turns streets into war zones. He has described how Edel Hernandez Martinez, affiliated with MS-13, one of the most violent and feared criminal street gangs in the entire nation, participated in these murders. He has shown the jury crime scene photos. He has called witnesses who testified to the horror of that day in 2008. He has made it clear that society demands justice, that the families of the victims deserve closure, and that the only appropriate response to this level of violence is death. But now it is the defense's turn. And what happens next will leave jurors wiping away tears. What happens next will create a moment so emotionally raw, so viscerally human, that even hardened court observers will find themselves struggling to maintain composure. Because Edel Hernandez Martinez himself takes the stand. This young man, this convicted murderer, this gang member who prosecutors say represents everything wrong with our criminal justice system's inability to stop gang violence, stands before the jury and does something unexpected. He begs for his life, not with arrogance, not with defiance, not with the cold stare of a hardened criminal who has accepted his fate. No. Edel Hernandez Martinez opens his heart to these 12 strangers and pleads with them to see him as something more than a monster.
I have a heart. I'm a human being. I wish you guys to give me a second chance to live and to tell you guys who I really want to be.
Let that sink in for a moment. A man convicted of participating in 2 murders is standing in a courtroom, facing the very real possibility of execution, and he is reminding the jury of his humanity. He is not denying what happened. He is not claiming innocence. The jury has already convicted him, but he is saying, please, please see me as more than this worst moment of my life. See me as a human being with a heart, with feelings, with the capacity for redemption. And the jury is listening. Several jurors are visibly moved. Some are wiping away tears. This is not what they expected. This is not the cold-blooded killer that prosecutors described during the guilt phase of the trial. This is a young man, just 24 years old, who seems terrified and broken and desperately trying to explain how he ended up in this courtroom facing a death sentence. Edel continues speaking, and what he says next is crucial to understanding his defense. He starts talking about Hector Alvarenga Retana, the co-defendant who prosecutors have identified as the actual trigger man. This is the heart of the defense strategy. Yes, Edel was there. Yes, Edel participated. Yes, Edel is guilty under the law because he was part of this gang activity that led to 2 deaths. But he did not pull the trigger. He was not the mastermind. He was not the leader. He was, according to his own testimony, a scared young man trapped in a nightmare that he could not escape. He was taking orders from someone higher up in the gang hierarchy, Someone more dangerous? Someone who would have killed him if he refused to participate.
Hector Raul Retana is a very dangerous man. I want you to know that. He a real bad and dangerous man. If you don't do what he say, he will kill you.
And then Edel tells his story of how he got involved with MS-13 in the first place. It is a story that the defense hopes will generate sympathy, that will help the jury understand that this is not simply a case of an evil person choosing evil actions. Edel explains how MS-13 members living in the tri-state area gave him a place to stay when he had nowhere else to go. They gave him alcohol. They gave him drugs. They gave him a sense of belonging in a country where he was an immigrant, where he was struggling, where he was vulnerable and alone. And once he had accepted their hospitality and their substances and their camaraderie, he could not get out. By this point, more jurors are crying. The emotional weight of this testimony is overwhelming. Here is a young man describing a life of fear, a life of coercion, a life where every choice was made under the threat of death. Is he responsible for his actions? Yes, legally he is. The jury has already determined that. But does he deserve to die for them? That is the question these jurors must now answer. And as they sit there watching this 24-year-old break down on the witness stand, as they hear him describe a life of gang violence and intimidation and impossible choices, some of them are clearly struggling with what justice actually means in this case. And then comes the moment that will define this entire sentencing hearing. Edel's defense attorney stands up to make her final plea. She is Tamara Sack, an experienced defense attorney who has fought hard for her client throughout this trial. She has presented evidence. She has cross-examined witnesses. She has made legal arguments. But now in this final moment, she abandons the formal language of the law. She abandons the careful rhetoric of legal persuasion. And she speaks from her heart, directly, emotionally, desperately. Tears stream down her face openly now.
I'm begging you to please spare his life. He has many redeemable qualities. He's a man. He's a son. He's a father. He's not the one who killed these individuals.
This is not a performance. This is not a calculated legal strategy. This is a human being pleading with other human beings to show mercy. The courtroom is silent except for the sound of crying. Some jurors are weeping. Some family members on both sides are weeping. Even court staff, people who have seen thousands of cases and heard every argument imaginable, are visibly moved by this raw display of emotion. Because what Tamara Sack is doing in this moment is reminding everyone in that courtroom of a fundamental truth that is easy to forget in the midst of a murder trial. The person sitting at the defense table is not just a defendant. He is not just a gang member. He is not just a convicted murderer. He is a human being with a family, with people who love him, with the capacity to be more than the worst thing he has ever done. The jury retires to deliberate on the most consequential decision they will ever make in their lives. They have heard from prosecutors who painted Edel Hernandez Martinez as a dangerous gang member whose crimes demand the ultimate punishment. They have heard from the defense attorney who cried openly and begged them to spare his life. They have heard from Edel himself, who stood before them and explained his gang involvement, his fear of Hector Retana, his inability to escape MS-13 once he was in. Now these 12 ordinary citizens must decide whether a 24-year-old man lives or dies. The weight of that responsibility is crushing. This is not like deciding guilt or innocence, where you are simply determining what happened based on the evidence. This is different. This is moral. This is philosophical. This is about whether society should take a life in response to lives that were taken. Some of the jurors believe in the death penalty as a concept, but struggle with applying it to this specific young man who seems so broken and afraid on the stand. Some of the jurors oppose the death penalty on principle, but feel pressure from the community and the victims' families to deliver justice. All of them are wrestling with conscience, with emotion, with the terrible burden of this decision. Hours pass. The families wait in the courtroom and the hallways, alternating between hope and dread. The prosecutors wait, confident they have made a compelling case for death. The defense attorneys wait, praying that their emotional appeal has reached the jury's hearts. And Edel Hernandez Martinez waits in a holding cell, knowing that any minute now he will learn whether he will spend the rest of his life in prison or whether the state will execute him. Finally, the jury returns. They have reached a decision. The foreperson stands and delivers the verdict on the penalty phase. The jury recommends life imprisonment instead of execution. Specifically, they recommend 30 years to life on each murder count. They have rejected the death penalty. Tamara Sack's plea worked. Adel's testimony worked. Something reached these jurors and convinced them that while Adel Hernandez Martinez must be punished severely for his role in these murders, he does not deserve to die. But if the defense team thinks this is a complete victory, they are about to be devastated. Because while the jury has spared Adel's life, Judge Michael Sage is about to impose a sentence that will ensure Adel never experiences freedom again. On March 14, 2011, Judge Sage delivers the final sentence: 78 years to life in prison, 30 years to life for each aggravated murder count, to be served consecutively, not concurrently. Additional time for the attempted murder charge, additional time for the gang participation charge. When you add it all up, Adel Hernandez Martinez will not be eligible for parole until he is 102 years old. Let me repeat that so the full weight of it lands. Adel is 24 years old at the time of sentencing. He will not be eligible to even ask for parole until he is 102. This is functionally a life without parole sentence, even though technically parole eligibility exists on paper. The reality is that Adel Hernandez Martinez will die in prison. The only question is whether it will be at age 40, age 60, age 80, or somehow, impossibly, at age 102 or beyond.